PHP Ugly is live. Whoa.
I hope that's when it goes live. Just Thomas on the camera.
He's dying.
All right. Kick us off, somebody.
I don't even know what episode we're on. Do we have a new Trello?
Man. We have a Trello board.
Hey, we're all set. Every time I do it, I get yelled at. Because you said, that's not how we do it. Oh, Thomas wasn't even here. Welcome to PHP Ugly episode 98. I'm John Congdon. With me, as always, is Eric Van Johnson. Hey, Eric.
Hello. Hello.
And Tom Rideout. Well, you're muted, Tom. Way to start the show off.
Hi. How's it going, guys?
Professionalism right there.
I'll fix that in editing. I won't fix it in editing.
I don't really edit anything.
Oh, way to go.
How's
How are
everybody
you guys
doing?
I'm doing great. I burned the shit out of my hand
How'd you do that?
making
Let me
books.
guess.
Let me guess. Wait, let me guess.
3D
Does it involve a 3D printer?
Yeah.
Everything involves a 3D printer anymore.
So I got a cheap 3D printer, and I'm trying to make my prints come out perfect, which, I mean, it's too cheap to do that. So my prints all come out good enough. And now I'm spending all of my days tuning wall thickness and flow rates and bed temperatures and trying to just get that last little millimeter perfection out of it.
I was going to say, it can't be perfection when you're posting to Reddit asking for help because you can't get something printing.
Well, I got it printed. The question I posted to Reddit was, why is the text on this thing separating the way it does? It's got these little gaps between some of the outlining versus smoothing fill. And
Did you figure it out?
No. I did put on my newly printed X belt tensioner, which did resolve some of the unevenness issues. But now I'm looking at improving my bed leveling, improving my extruder nozzle, possibly getting a borosilicate glass.
Should have a better extruder nozzle. Just
It's nice because all the upgrade parts cost like between $5 and $20, so it's not too expensive. It's just that my printer is very quickly becoming a different printer than the one that I bought. Like I started listing off the improvements I've made to my printer since I got it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
it hasn't been that long.
Yeah. And it's only about 88% of the original printer that I bought at this point. So
the big question is, if you were to do it again, would you have bought the cheap printer or would you have gone?
Yeah. Because
you haven't learned your lesson. That's what you're saying.
The cheap printer is good enough to print higher quality parts than it itself is made of. So it's just a process. If I were to do the whole thing over again, I would at least have the list of things to do from the beginning at this point. But I would totally do the same thing all over again.
So how much does the PLA cost to make stuff?
So I've got a 1 kilogram roll that was about $22 total, and it's considered an average quality brand. And from what I've read, I could make like 200 of these bookmarks or so with it. So it's somewhat economical. The slicer, the program that generates the code for the printer to actually print, you can put in your cost per roll and the weight and the length, and it will calculate how much each part you print out cost you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's got a lot of nice features. It'll tell you how long it's going to take it to print. It'll tell you how much it costs to print it and all that kind of stuff.
All right, we need to move off of 3D printing because you could talk about it all day.
Never going to happen.
Eric, I missed a SD PHP meetup last night. How did that go?
It didn't miss you, but you like that. No.
I think that came out meaner than you intended.
It went well. Another big turnout, which was nice. Well, it was nice for a couple reasons. One, it wasn't on our normal day. It was a week ahead of schedule, which was actually only 3 weeks since, or 2 weeks since our last meetup. Yeah, 2 weeks since our last meetup. Another big turnout. I think there was around 25 to maybe a little bit more than 25 people there. Dave Stokes, which if you've been doing PHP development for longer than a week, you would probably know Dave Stokes is the community manager at MySQL. He was in town. He's going up to Pasadena this weekend for Scale, which is the Southern California Linux Expo. And he was swinging through San Diego, gave us a ring and said, "Hey, can I come by and do a talk?" I said, "Yep, sure." That's why we had it on a different day. So he swung in and did a talk on MySQL 8. Probably the most interaction we've had with the group, like the most questions ever asked of a presenter was of this talk last night. Dave was just getting hammered with question after question, which is good. I mean, it was great. Everybody was very engaged in the talk. Had a lot of questions about it, and it was good. It was nice it's nice to see the group getting big again. We did the whole. It was weird. It was like a little mini conference because we started the night with a test-driven development workshop that ran about 2 hours. And then another one of our members did a talk on Vue, which he's been doing like every meetup. And then, that went for about 15, 20 minutes. Then Dave did his talk on MySQL 8. So it was a nice little range of discussions, and it was good.
Fantastic. So do you think we need to consider moving away from the second Wednesday based on the last two meetups, moving either to the first or third?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, nobody said anything. Oh, that's the other weird thing. You might not know about this, John, and Thomas, I doubt you knew about it. So not only had we moved days, but we had a major gas leak.
I definitely know about that.
Oh, did you hear about this? This main gas
3 hours. 3 hours after that happened, it happened in Colorado Springs too.
Oh, really?
Same exact thing.
Bizarre. Anyways, traffic everywhere around where the meetup was gridlocked. I mean, northbound was okay. So for the people who were coming north, it was all right. Southbound, forget about it. Everything was just a big parking lot in San Diego last night.
Yeah. So Jackie and I took a trip out of town yesterday. That's why I didn't make the meetup. And as I'm traveling down the 56 to get to the 5, which is the main highway to go north-south in San Diego, actually all the way up California, there was one of those signs saying that the 163 was closed like at the 5. And I was like, that's weird. I wonder what's going on. We get up to San Clemente, which is about 45 minutes north of us. And I happened to turn on the news in the hotel room and saw that it was that gas leak. I was like, that answers that. At least now I know what's going on.
Yeah, it was a mess. It was an absolute mess.
The
meetup was great.
Not anymore.
You don't have traffic in Colorado?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
not at all.
surprising.
We have other
traffic in San Diego.
We have other stuff that's just way more bizarre, though. So you know how when your car breaks down, you're supposed to not be in the freeway, like pull over.
Mm-hmm.
People don't do that here.
Oh,
Middle of the freeway,
whatever lane it is, huh? They just they're just there.
wherever a problem occurs, the car is stopped there, and they begin working on it in the middle of the road. It is the craziest thing I've ever seen, and I've seen it at least 10 times now. And like a guy changing a tire in the middle of the road at rush hour on the freeway. You're like, hey, you probably shouldn't. But then like the cop pulls up behind him, hops out, starts helping him with the tire. I guess that's just what they do here.
Yeah, but you're coming to San Diego, huh?
Oh,
Thomas?
Yeah, 16 days.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to figure that out, John. Yeah, we have to. I think
you guys are going to be.
I think it's we need to coordinate a way for all three of us to get together and record for our 100 episodes. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I'm not going to have my gear there, so you guys are going to have an extra mic set up for me.
I actually do have an extra one.
Yeah,
I believe. Yep, I think I do. So we might be able to make that happen.
I'm excited.
We got to figure that out. How was your trip, John? You said you were out of town.
It was great. Went up and visited a client. Just happened to have another developer coming through town, so we all met up. There was 8 of us. Went to dinner, and then afterwards, my wife and I kind of went out downtown in San Clemente.
Whoa, slow down. Don't need to know everything.
Speak for yourself. Keep going, John.
Hold
on, let me get comfortable.
It was great. Her mom watched our kids, so we had our nice time away. Went to a nice little wine bar afterwards. Then went to a karaoke bar after that. It was a good evening.
Things got crazy.
We were out late.
I had something totally weird happen. So we have our meetups on Wednesday, but as we've discussed in the past, every Thursday, John and I do a co-working thing where people can come to the crepe shop John and I are at and work with us. 90% of the time, it's Diego Dev people. You know, it's our time to work together as a team, but anybody's welcome. Obviously, John wasn't there this morning, and I'm sitting there coding, and a Diego Dev developer walks in, but it's our Diego Dev developer from up in Berkeley. And I'm like, holy smokes, dude, what are you doing here? It turns out his wife had gotten a job or is transferring jobs. She's working for the same company, but she's transferring jobs down to LA, and they'd come down to LA, check the place out, look for some apartments, and he figured since he was down here, he'd drive down a little further and do co-work with us Thursday morning. So that was cool.
I was shocked that he didn't go last night to the meetup.
He couldn't get down here, so he was trying to, but he couldn't make it down last night. Something about traffic.
Gotcha. Southbound traffic was backed up all the way to LA.
But that was cool. It was good to see him. He's a good guy. I like talking with him.
Yeah, he'll be closer now. He'll make it more often.
Yeah. What you guys been up to this week? Anything fun? Working on anything exciting?
No, my dad's still in town, so my work schedule's been all sorts of out of whack. Throwing the trip yesterday, so I'm looking forward to getting back to normal here in a week.
I had an interview with Google.
Really?
How'd that go?
Yeah. It wasn't like an employment interview.
Oh.
It was a user survey.
Oh.
But I got connected with a UX engineer, and she called me up on Hangouts, and we chatted for about an hour. And I got to comment about all the UX decisions that I absolutely hate. And I think she was being nice. She said it was very helpful.
Specific product?
I can't actually talk about it. I did sign an NDA.
Oh, nice.
Nothing interesting.
It's fun to be a part of that kind of stuff. Way back in, what was it, 2005, Google Checkout, when that came out. The company I worked for at the time was one of the first to implement Google Checkout on their website. And Google ended up bringing out, like, I think it was 11 companies, and I got to represent bowlingball.com at the time. So they flew us out to Mountain View and got to go be a part of a couple of panels, and it's really interesting to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of the stuff you sort of figure is designed by committee, and I got the feeling from the response to many of my statements that there just wasn't anything they were going to do about the thing I didn't like. But I did, I love UX stuff. I got to throw in my 2 cents. Maybe they'll take some of what I said for actual value.
You say that reminds me. I tweeted out, I think it was this week, maybe late last week. I hate Meetup.com's new interface.
Yeah.
And there was a bug where their calendar was showing the meetup would show the proper text time, but then their little calendar icon to the left showed a different day. And that's confusing to our members. First of all, I would be very confused by it.
That's not too bad. It's not like they're organizing anything on a date specific term.
And I mean, I've hated this new layout since they went live with it. If you are part of Meetup, they allowed you to check it out before they made it live for everybody. And I did that. Absolutely hated it. I still hate so many of the things they've done. And I switched back to the old one. And then they still had to push it forward. Designed by committee. They decided, oh, we spent time doing this, so we're going to make it live. And it is just horrible. On top of that, you get their Twitter customer service people that, they replied to my first tweet and seemed caring. And I replied to them saying more in depth of what was going on and got a very generic response back. And I was like, oh my God, just stop. Don't even try. I'd rather you not tweet back to me if it's automated or you didn't read what I wrote.
Mm-hmm.
I had Comcast give me a please take this tweet down tweet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What did you tweet that they did that?
That their service was a dumpster fire. They were unable to organize their own technicians and couldn't give me an ETA for my internet being back up without me logging into their system through the internet.
I hope you didn't take it down.
No, they said, oh, we're so sorry to hear about this. Please contact support at this number, which was the number that I had stated clearly was not the correct number. So, but speaking of design by committee, have you guys heard of mob programming?
Yes.
No.
We had somebody talk about it at the meetup.
Yeah.
Eric, so you can't say no.
I am getting.
I'm a dad.
I'm getting so sick of these stupid co-working methods that aren't what they're supposed to be.
What's mob programming?
You know what pair programming is, right?
Yes.
2 people.
I'm a fan of pair programming, yes.
Yeah, it's that, but with 3 people.
Or more. It's literally a mob of people. You have everybody in there giving their 2 cents.
Everybody's just like standing around laptops telling you what.
No, you have
laptop.
Yeah, one device, one person driving, and everybody else just talking.
Yeah, 3 or more people getting together at some agreed upon point. So like calling a meeting to go to the meeting room and sit together. And I swear to God, if I was in charge of a company and somebody said, oh yeah, we had a great mob programming session, I would fire my software architect. Because if you need a mob programming session, then the architecture has failed somewhere. Because that's all that they talk about doing. All they talk about is working together on a solution and coding together to get the best possible. That's architecture. They're talking about not the grunt work of coding, but the part that should have been done for them before this came up in the first place. And it's one laptop and 5 people. That is so stupid. That is so. I understand that Silicon Valley people have more money than sense, but this is so dumb.
No, I disagree with you, Thomas. I think we need to try to take it to the next level and do flash mob programming. And just like in the middle of like a mall, all these people with laptops just go to the middle of the mall and just start coding.
Just doing the Macarena and typing.
Or better yet, you get a bunch of your developer friends together and you go to like startups and just start hovering around developers' tables and telling them how to code flash mob programming.
There's actually a new meetup here in San Diego that just launched called Mob Programming.
Oh, I'm sure that'll go great.
Really?
Part of me is wondering, is it like a startup trying to get their product built? So they're like, hey, come learn mob programming, and here's the project we're going to work on.
That's brilliant.
This will be so much fun. All you guys will do this for free, and you'll build this thing. It'll be great.
Yep.
And there's going to be the one person there who's got 25 years of experience sitting in the back of the room just muttering to himself, you're all a bunch of fucking idiots. you just successfully implemented the wrong thing for every use case. I mean, it's programming by committee. What a terrible concept.
So you obviously don't like mob programming. What's your view of pair programming?
I don't find a use for it.
Really? You don't find a use for pair programming?
No. But I work in a very peculiar way. I work in like spurts of inspiration. So for me, if it's a boring project, I can make it take the whole workday. But if it's like something, if there's something cool that I want to work on, then I will burn like a firework on that.
But that's not the point. I mean, the point is exposing yourself to other solutions, other methods. I mean, that's what I love about pair programming.
That's how you get diseases.
When I'm coding with somebody and I see how they approach a problem, and then I talk through what my solution would be, and I like it. I mean, otherwise you end up in this silo. You start developing bad practices, and I don't know. I like pair programming. Just it's refreshing. I literally watch people code online. Like there used to be a really good live coding stream, but they've gone where you've got to pay now. But I used to sit there and just watch people code because I enjoy it. I enjoy watching how people tackle problems, and I don't know. Maybe that's I have issues. I don't know what to tell you.
No, I agree. But you also get the benefit of having somebody somewhat checking your work, right? Making just 2 sets of eyes versus waiting till you get stuck in a corner and having somebody come in.
It's been like 10 years since I've had a problem where I was stuck on it, and then I just went to somebody and rubber ducked it with them, and then went back to work. Like
It's not about that.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, especially if it's developers you work with day in and day out, it almost helps you harmonize your workflow, and you really get a sense of how people work and solve problems. And I don't know. I think you're missing out, Thomas. You should give it a try.
I work from home.
Ted Nugent in the chat room brings up a good point. It's also great for mentoring.
Yeah.
So
totally.
We don't have any junior developers working with us right now, but that's a good point.
Here's how bad the mob programming thing is, though. They have 3 rules. At any time, one person is the driver. Number 2, everyone else is the navigator. Could you imagine being in a bus where the rest of the bus decided they were all the navigator?
Yeah.
And of course, rule 3: everyone swaps roles often. It just sounds like such a. And of course, it's an article on Medium that I'm reading. I did mob programming every day for 5 months. Here's what I learned.
What did they learn?
What?
They didn't learn the past tense of learn.
It wasn't a grammar class. It was a mob programming thing.
So it was the past possessive.
So I did something this week that I'm actually feeling pretty good about. In the latest magazine for PHP Architect magazine, one of their Eric Mann did a article on signing commits, and I hadn't realized. And I do think when I had read the article, I realized that I kind of had known that, but I had totally forgotten that you can manipulate commits to make it look like commits were done by other people. There's a way to do that.
That's really easy.
If commits aren't signed. So now when you sign your commit, it kind of gives that stamp of approval of, yeah, this was actually committed by this person. So I did that this week, and that was pretty painless. I thought that was cool.
I like
So
it too.
Semi-commit, or is it automated now?
It's automated now. So I upload my public key, my public GPG, is it? Yeah, GPG,
Yeah, GPG.
GPG key to GitHub. But yeah, when I do my commits, it's automated. It just automatically signs it. You have to make some changes to your Git global config to do that. And yeah, I don't even think about it. It just does it now.
Yeah, I'm totally going to do this.
I think you can enforce that in your
in the settings.
Git config in GitHub. It says it has to be signed.
Yeah, the commits have to be signed. We don't have that enabled, obviously, because not everybody's doing it. But yes, that is a setting there that you can check. It's just a checkbox now.
Huh, that's funny. I do have my GPG key there already. So I wonder if it's
I had
automatically
one there
signing.
too.
You have another GitHub article here. I put the fire to you guys for putting tickets on Trello, and Eric, you came through.
I
Notice you
only
said
put like
Eric
2 or 3 up there. Yeah, this article came up, and it actually sparked kind of a line of topics that I've come across for the last week or two. But it's talking about so the article that I posted specifically to the board was about why you shouldn't use GitHub when you're hiring somebody. Like you shouldn't use that as a metric of whether or not they're a good developer by what their GitHub profile looks like. And I heard something similar about that around open source too.
Well, I've been saying that for years. That it's weird that people think that someone will look at their GitHub to hire them because.
So explain to me why you think that, and why it's a bad idea. Because I don't think it would be the only metric I would ever use to hire somebody. I don't see why it's a bad one to take in consideration. So explain to me your thought.
Agree.
Because for 15 years before I took over Iron MQ from Laravel Collective, I had nothing to submit to GitHub whatsoever. All of my work is private. All of my work is closed.
But that was a choice you made not to contribute to open source.
No, it's because I'm gainfully employed.
Yeah,
and I work exempt status, so I'm working more than my allotted, daily hours already. And then when you start looking at somebody's GitHub, the first thing that everyone assumes is, the contribution chart. That's what everyone's looking at. The contribution chart brings nothing to the table. It just says that you've managed to commit at some regular interval. It doesn't say that your code is any good or that you work well with other people or that
if somebody's using that chart to hire you, then they're idiots to begin with. The whole point is, if you have code out there, I now have a sense of your coding style. Or if I go to the next step and look at where you've had conversation, and I see you're a dick to open source maintainers, I'm not going to hire you. You know, so there are things to be gleaned from it, but it's not the only, like Eric said, it's not the only metric I would use to hire somebody.
I would definitely say a headhunter going out and looking at a GitHub profile and seeing how much green is on a GitHub profile before submitting somebody's resume to a client is BS. But skilled developers like myself and John going on to a potential person's GitHub profile, finding projects that they worked on and looking at their code, I think gives us feedback, like John said, on the type of developer that they are.
Maybe the comments and the interaction with other users, but the code itself, I wouldn't even say is that good of a metric, because so much open source code is just shovelware type stuff.
Well,
API implementations.
It's like a bullshit conversation then, because then you can never prove to me anything, right? It's like when how could I ever see any code? How could I judge you on any work if you're going to make that statement? I mean, it's got to be something
more from me,
huh?
Did you expect more from me? Because that was yours.
No, actually, I don't. Yeah. Yeah, that's my flaw there. I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm looking up the talking points of this article, and the article is these general concepts, but then backed with evidence, saying how popular somebody is has no reference to how good of a programmer they are.
Of course,
interviewers don't check GitHub profile or GitHub pages or profiles.
Wrong. Some do.
Right.
2 out of 50.
It doesn't matter. It is just one thing that if you have commits, if you contribute to open source, there is code that you can share, because like you said, you are gainfully employed and it's private code. You can't share that with somebody that you're interviewing with.
No, but there is the other end of the spectrum, which is that there are people who want to stay in the open source community or work for an open source related company, and they will prune their GitHub profile for that specifically.
That's fine. That's their decision.
Yeah. But I think this article is talking about people who are in the market looking to get a job and worrying about their GitHub profile. Because I remember a few years back that worrying about your GitHub profile was something that recruiters told you to do. They told you to make sure that your GitHub profile had lots of green and had all of the possible ways of linking to you and had examples of your code.
And again, maybe that's what separates, and back to my statement, that's what separates a skilled person from a not skilled person. And that's why I think people like myself and John grab information from this resource, whereas an interviewer who doesn't know how to code wouldn't, and it would probably baffle them, and they probably don't look at it. So, yeah, that's the difference there. Yes, should everybody use GitHub as a metric, as even something that they should take into consideration when onboarding somebody? No, not everybody should, but is there benefit to the skilled people who know how to look for that talent? And that's what it is. It's a talent. And not everybody has the ability to spot that talent.
If a recruiter's telling you that you have to have all this green and all these commits, that's impossible if you're working on a private project.
Right.
So that's just a bad recruiter at that point.
Well, and there are ethical concerns about that as well. The article in its second paragraph links to the ethics of unpaid labor and the open source community, which is a real concern.
Hearing more and more about this too. Yeah, I don't get this argument. I've never gotten the argument, and there's these people like positioning. People are exploiting open source developers. I'm like, No,
Whoa.
nobody's-
I don't think that this is that argument. I think that this is simply an open letter bringing up the conversation of the ethics of open source software. Is that, like cloning, we didn't have to think about the ethics of cloning until it started happening or became mainstream. And in the same way, because open source software is in the limelight these days, it powers 99% of the internet, then it is important to at least have the conversation about the ethics of unpaid labor in the open source community, whether or not the person is willingly contributing. It's these kinds of moral
I don't think that's not an ethics question, though.
Absolutely, it is.
What's the question? Whether or not we're guilting people into working for free?
Whether or not people are having heart attacks maintaining open source software, which is happening.
It's not. Don't put that on open source software. Don't put people who don't know how to pace themselves or who have compulsion issues where they can't stop working on something on the fact that it's open source. You have that issue across the board. Open source just makes it visible. That's not an open source issue.
No, it's not an open source issue.
Open source developers
it is an ethics issue, though.
It's not an ethics issue.
Sure it is.
Open source developers always control how much they work. How often do you hear open source developers walking away from projects? It happens all the time.
Absolutely.
It's not an ethics question. It's not an ethical question.
That's a matter of wisdom. If you die before you gain the wisdom to walk away, then you've died already.
Oh, you're like saying, well, let's have an argument about how much a dog barks. A dog's gonna bark however much it's gonna bark. It's like it's not a freaking question to have. There's no question there.
Except that there is still the social contract.
Oh my God, you're making something out of this. There's nothing there. Stop it.
Well, you were saying you don't get why it's an issue, and I'm saying I get why it's an issue. It needs to be talked about.
I'm letting you know you're wrong, and we don't need to talk about it. Shut the door. Your mom and I are sleeping.
What?
Hey, don't you guys have a new sponsor for Wave PHP? Who is that?
We have two.
Last time we talked. We already talked about him. And we can talk about him again.
Still just open source mental health and the other one?
Phone burner. Yeah. Open source mental health and phone burner.
You're not picking up what I'm putting down there.
No idea what you're talking about. Seeing how open source mental health is open source mental health. Are you trying to...
Isn't open source mental health discussing the ethics of these kinds of
No, not at all.
No, not at all.
Do you not know what open sourcing mental health is all about?
I guess not. Moving on.
No, we got to talk about it now.
There is an issue of mental health. I mean, in every industry, but within the developer community, it's probably a little more prevalent. And we get a lot of developers that kind of work in their own cocoons and end up developing mental issues. The great folks over at Open Sourcing Mental Illness are trying to bring awareness to it, research, and making material available to people to help them through issues. And as they gather research, they make that data open source to try and just continue to grow the community around it and make everything better.
That's admirable.
Yeah, it's not.
I don't have to suppose it is. It's like whether it's an ethical question. It's not. You don't have to suppose. This is admirable.
You've known me long enough to know that I have to suppose.
They do great talks. They go to a lot of conferences, give talks on mental illness, trying to, again, just raise awareness and let people know that there are other people out there. There's people to talk to. They're making like, I forget what they're called, quiet rooms or safe rooms where I know personally, I go to a conference, and oftentimes I'd end up back in my hotel room, just wanting to get away. So now they're trying to make it a little easier for people. Like, hey, if you just want to get away, you don't have to go back to your hotel room, especially if the conference isn't in the hotel. It's like you can go to this space, just get away. So
It's like
stuff.
an Airbnb for your head.
Yes. I would like an Airbnb for my head.
Me too. Well, I'm going on vacation soon, so we'll see how miserably that fails.
Probably as bad as trying to say never mind.
That sentence, as bad as that sentence went.
You took OSMI in the completely wrong direction to back up your point and failed miserably.
Gotta have something funny to talk about.
So we're gonna pimp your television. Yo, dog, I heard you like reboots, so we're rebooting your reboot.
I don't like Reboot.
Reboot was awesome. Did you really didn't like Reboot?
No, it's you have to understand exactly where I was. You have to understand exactly where I was when it happened.
For those of you that don't know what we're talking about, there used to be when was this? Oh, hold on. Wait, we have issue. Office manager is up and moving. He needs out. I gotta let the office manager out of the studio. Hold on.
Get a beer while you do that. Mark the time. What time is it?
I'm gonna go to sleep.
42:32. God damn it. I have a main topic to get to.
Okay, well I'm back. So let's do this. Let's get to the main topic.
Yeah, not gonna happen. You've been listening to PHP Ugly. I'm John Congdon.
I'm Eric Van Johnson. Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
That's your agent messaging you.
It's like Power Rangers now.
Yeah. All right. So
we've already done the ending, so you can just cut that in and
good to know.
All right. For people listening, if you're not aware, there used to be a television series called Reboot. I don't remember. Do you remember the time this was, Thomas?
The original Reboot would have been 1996.
96? Really? Oh, I must have watched it like in syndication or something, because I watched it because of the children. You know, I wasn't watching it as an adult or anything. I had little kids and it was on. So anyhow, there's this show called Reboot. It was like this quirky CGI computer animated show. It was kind of cool because they used like the I forget, the bad guy's name was like Megabyte or something like that, and everybody had like computer names and everything was computer related, and it was cool. It was before the internet was like a popular thing. I think it was even before the internet.
It was before the internet. It was 94, so it was actually before AOL got the internet. AOL went World Wide Web in 95.
I just remember the lady, the head female role. Her name was Dot Matrix. That's cool, man. Her name was Dot Matrix. I get it, because the printer, the Dot Matrix. That's nice. Well, anyways, Netflix is managing to ruin that for everybody. Netflix is like rebooting they're licensing every property they can get a hold of and rebooting it. And they've rebooted this reboot.
Great.
And I'm actually not even sure if it's the reboot, if it's supposed to be the same series or not, because
it is.
It looked like, it is for sure.
It is a spin-off of the original series called The Guardian Code.
So I saw the trailer for it, and like they had like some of the characters, like the Megabyte villain was in it, but the people look completely different. Like you said, you mentioned Power Rangers. That's exactly what I thought. It's basically what it is.
It's 25-year-olds acting like they're 16-year-olds, and getting superpowers because they found an old computer that looks like it's from the future.
And yeah, they can go. It looks like they're like from the trailer, and based on that, it looks like they can just get pulled into this matrix whenever there's a problem, and they have to fight the problem, and they get to go back to their real world and be normal people again. So
yes, I'm sure it will bring some semblance of reality back into the hacking tropes that the media already has.
yeah,
I was saying I didn't get into Reboot because I was in a very, very particular place when it came out.
prison.
I emotionally, I was too old for Reboot and too young for Reboot. So my mentor, who was 25 or 30 years older than me, loved it. And my nerd friends who were a year or two younger than me loved it. But I was just too cool for that because I was an actual hacker and I wasn't going to watch some pretend fake hacking cartoon show.
How'd that work out for you? Did you realize how big of a douche you were?
Well, you said prison, so.
There you go. Oh my goodness!
All right, I gotta speed through this. I have a talking point that we need to get to before we completely run out of time. I have a main story for today, and I was hoping to save some of your bitterness towards me for this story, but
I got plenty. So
okay, good.
That's an endless supply.
I'm just gonna do the quick news breakdown for the week. Implode.io. Have you guys seen this?
Have not.
Okay,
I
if you
clicked
pull
on
it up.
Clicked on the card. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm looking at here.
Pull it up, you'll see it. It looks just like JS Fiddle, something like that, except that on the left-hand nav, there's a drop-down for framework.
What?
And you can select between Laravel 5.1 through 5.6.
Okay.
And you can select your PHP version 7.1 or 7.2. And from here, you can create and save pens, or whatever they call them in this version, that interact with Laravel.
So I can use like the helpers and everything in here?
All the helpers, all the class styles. You can create an eloquent data model and database. You can create blade templates.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah,
well,
it's a
so
full,
this is like a little code snippet sharing thing?
Yeah, it's a full instance of a clean Laravel install running as a pen.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I wasn't sure what the significance was when I saw the card. I'm like, all right, I don't get this. But now that you explained it, yeah, that's actually pretty neat.
Now, I like this a lot, not because it's particularly useful to me or you or John, but because every time I see good documentation or really good documentation, it points to a code pen where you can test the documentation and screw with it right there as an example. So the examples aren't just copy and paste code. The examples are literally executing code. So this is an incredible tool for if you are asked a question on IRC or in our Slack channel, you can brain dump an answer out really quick and have it saved as a linkable item. And they can take that.
You can create a schema, a model, and code.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
So it's a very cool little tool. I definitely have to keep it in my head for the next time that this kind of situation comes up.
We'll be bookmarking this one.
The next big news article of the week is Password Exposed. This is a helper function you can install through Composer, and when you give it a password, it will scrub the Have I Been Pwned databases and tell you if that password is a potentially compromised password.
So if I'm accepting a password for a user, I would scrub it first?
You would. So the way it works is actually secure. It hashes the password so that it's not transmitting anything clear text through the line. And the Have I Been Pwned people opened up their database in a hashed format, so you can search for hashes instead of searching for passwords. so that everything is secure sort of end to end. And what you would do is you would say that password appears to be easily compromised or has already been compromised in an attack. Please use a different password. Or you can see if your whole database was somehow pwned and you just didn't know it. So not the most useful little tool, but it's a useful little tool a little bit. PHP 7.3. Good news. Garbage collection isn't garbage anymore.
What do you mean?
It turns out that garbage collection in PHP wasn't that great because no one ever cared about it because we didn't usually get into a garbage collection scenario. The way it was all the way up until 7.2 was that if you ran up to 10,000 or so root variables, the garbage collector would trigger, clean up everything that could be cleaned up, and then exit. And the problem with that was that if it cleaned up 50 variables and the other 9,950 were kept, then the next time you hit 10,000 again, it would trigger again. So garbage collecting was occurring in a loop much faster than it was supposed to. Not a big problem for most PHP applications, but if we want to move forward with PHP as a language, then we have to do something about it because there are instances where it's going to be a problem. So now, the new garbage collection written by Dmitry Stogov and Nick somebody. I don't have that name. The new garbage collection, when it cleans up objects, it increments the next garbage collection cycle to 10,000 plus the amount that weren't cleaned up. So it won't trigger immediately. Yeah.
Interesting.
Good stuff. Improvements. 7.3 will be better. Ta-da. Finally, the item you've been waiting for. Do you guys know what Geek Squad is?
The Best Buy support system or support team?
Yeah, so I believe it actually ended up being a separate corporate entity from Best Buy, but they have a relationship with Best Buy wherein all of their storefronts are inside Best Buy stores.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was some information released recently that turns out that Best Buy or Geek Squad employees were being paid by the FBI to find incriminating information on computers that were brought in for repairs. So not just that if they ran across something potentially questionable, but to actually seek out something questionable on machines that they were given.
All they ever did was find porn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, porn that could put people in jail, which it did. And it looks like the person who found it was given $500 for finding it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Do you think Geek Squad is the only people that, like, you don't think Apple does this or anybody else? You think it's just the Geek Squad?
I very firmly believe that Apple does not do this. Apple takes security very, very, very seriously. It's the one redeeming thing about Apple as a corporation.
And Apple was a bad example because, again, they stood up against the FBI actually specifically when they wanted them to unlock or put in a back door to the iPhones. I'm saying in general, do you think Geek Squad, they're the only people doing this, or do you think the FBI has persuaded other groups to do this?
Are there other groups?
Your local computer, Bob's computer repair guy.
So I think your local computer repair guy is too small of a target for the
just say
side.
no. If
No,
you
I
think
don't.
the answer is
No.
no, say no.
I don't.
Say this was a Geek Squad thing. That's all I'm asking you.
It's only a Geek Squad thing. Well, the
I'm
EFF,
not surprised. I've never been a fan of Geek Squad. I've always questioned their value, their ethics. Yeah,
their value to me has always been great because I can send my relatives to Geek Squad.
Yeah.
And not having to fix computers anymore pays for itself.
That's true, but I mean, you could send it to the Bob's local repair shop too.
Yeah,
it's just easy to say take it to the Geek Squad.
Yeah, it's really easy to say, do you know where Best Buy is? Yeah, unplug your computer and take it to them.
Yeah.
And apparently when you do that, they often ship the computer out to a sort of a central facility in Kentucky. And that's where the FBI has their operatives. So it's not just the guys standing at the desk at Best Buy. These are the technicians who work the repair line. And because of that, they've managed to keep what they're doing secret. So the FBI had a meeting with these employees in Kentucky and said, when you file these kinds of concerns, here's how you do it, because we don't want your name showing up in some documentation about finding something illicit. So you're going to file it through this system, which guarantees an anonymity, but still gets you that $500 paycheck.
That's scary because it would be so easy to plant something to get that $500.
Yeah, not just so easy, but the easiest. I mean, for them to just say, here's a citizen in charge of monitoring for illicit content. And to be fair here, what we're talking about is child pornography. So it's terrible. It's awful stuff. But the FBI is paying for civilians to invade your privacy, whether or not they find something incriminating. And then if they find something incriminating, because it's a confidential informant that found it, then it goes just as verboten. Yeah, it's yours. It was on your computer. Why was it on your computer? You say, well, I sent it to Geek Squad. And they say, yeah, we know those guys. They're all good. The big question for me is that this circumvents the Fourth Amendment. For the FBI to do what they're telling a civilian enterprise to do, they would have to acquire a warrant. And on top of that, when they do get information from a Best Buy employee saying, yeah, there's porn on here, then they still have to get a warrant, but they use that informant's information to get the warrant, which seems like jumping straight through a loophole in the Fourth Amendment of unlawful search and seizure. Doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely a loophole.
And then to compensate an informant for finding something promotes false positives. It promotes them to find something where something doesn't exist.
That's an ethical question that can be asked across the board with law enforcement.
You've already said ethical questions aren't real.
I don't think I said that.
Pretty sure that's what you said.
But yeah, and that is definitely something that comes up, when law enforcement pays informants, it's kind of promoting the informant to find something wrong. So yeah, that's not specific to this case at all. And seeing how ethics seems to be a big topic in today's show, I mean, it is an ethical dilemma. If you have that chokehold of this organization that manages to repair a ton of computers, and there's something as serious as child pornography that they can help reduce that. It's hard not to say, yes, help us find these people who use child pornography. along the same manner, and we've talked about this in the past, I give my computer to Apple. I'm trusting Apple isn't doing anything but what is necessary to repair my computer. They're not going through my hard drive. They're not looking at stuff that they have no business looking at. So, what do we do here? I mean, do we, as consumers, do we use the power of our dollar and say, hey, we found out about this, we're not using your service anymore across the board, and have them disperse that way? That doesn't correct the problem. The FBI will just go to the next organization. Do we look at a way to plug that loophole where this is, this becomes evidence that's inadmissible if it's kind of gathered that way, but then you jeopardize other cases that do get evidence correctly, and whether or not that stuff is questionable. And this is something that again, like we talked last week, a couple of level-headed people need to sit down and have a conversation about and see how we fix this.
Definitely not us.
Yes,
but is there a level of offense, child pornography being one of the highest up there, where operating systems like Microsoft or Apple could be looking at your screen, and if they see that kind of stuff, have it automatically report?
Yeah, I mean, with AI, what it's becoming, right?
So let me throw another wrench into the conversation and say, how do you think that they found these files? Just like browsing the hard drive?
I mean, I'm not sure the relevance of it would be, but yeah, sure, browsing the hard drive, I guess.
In this instance, in the instance of the man who was convicted for child pornography, the data in question was in an unallocated partition. It was in the unallocated space between his partitions, which required forensic software to access, which is not part of the Geek Squad toolkit. You are not supposed to be digging around unallocated space in a hard drive to fix a broken motherboard. So it's clear that every computer that comes in...
If that guy's lawyer is any good, he should be able to use that information.
Unfortunately, the documents that were reviewed were not used in the case, and therefore not part of the process of discovery. So he wasn't even
saying
aware.
that. You say that every week, and I still don't understand how that happens. How is there evidence that's gathered that's used to prosecute somebody that then becomes undiscoverable by the defense?
Because it wasn't used. It wasn't used in the case against the person. It was used in the arrest.
I don't know the case.
Or in the
I don't know
jailing.
if you're blowing smoke up my ass or not. But
I'm not.
It's just I find that one hard. I really find that to be very difficult to digest, because regardless of whether it was part of what was submitted or not, the defense attorney speaking to his client should know that, hey, there was no way they could have found that stuff. There's no way they could have stumbled upon that, and he should have been able to probe to find that information out. So, but again, I don't want to get hung up on this one case or this one particular person who happened to do it this one way. I'm more concerned about the general arching topic that you put up, which I think is a very real issue that people need to be concerned about. You can't, and it even comes back on cases like, parents who have pictures of their children in the bathtub, and how that gets interpreted, and who interprets it, as child porn.
I agree with you there.
As family pictures.
I 100% agree with you there, but I think that it's a bad example. I think the better example nowadays is 18-year-old boys going to prison for having pictures of their 17-year-old girlfriends, which is frequently happening in the United States right now. That there are 18-year-old boys being convicted of child pornography for having naked pictures sent to them by their girlfriends.
I'm not going down that road. I'm not going down that road with you.
Even beyond that, there's a case where a 16-year-old boy was convicted of having child pornography of himself.
Okay, again, not going down that road with you. it's not a topic I care to talk about.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
So this is all through the work of the EFF filing Freedom of Information Act disclosures to the FBI. And it looks like the FBI did the bare minimum. There are thousands of documents available, but the FBI only produced, I think, in the area of 20 documents total, and has declined to say that they have a similar relationship with any other repair facilities or business.
I would really like to see.
We're denying that we do.
The question is, can your ISP do this?
Right, exactly. I mean, where does it stop, right?
Yeah. It's a mess. I mean, this is a huge violation of privacy. Yes, it caught a very bad guy, but there are thousands and thousands of computers going through that facility, and anything that you thought was private on that computer is not. Somebody saw it. Somebody went through every picture in your pictures folder after fixing your computer.
And it's scary because, I mean, just as simple as your phone, most people, I mean, you put Facebook on there and just say, yeah, you have access to my photos, not thinking, 6 months down the road, what is going to happen with that. And how often do you go to Facebook and says, hey, only you can see this picture. Do you want to do something with it? But that means they can see the picture to process it.
Yeah, and do you trust that they're gonna follow the rules of the checkbox they present you?
Oh, I got some really interesting pictures of John I haven't used yet. I'm holding on to those. There's some good pictures.
The sad part is it's true.
I didn't doubt him for 1 second.
I still don't know why I sent that to you.
Okay, now you're going to have to send it to me, Eric.
He doesn't have to do anything. If he knows what's best for him, he won't.
All right, Eric, you've got one last article. You want to close this out?
Oh yeah, we can. You want to do the Twitter one? You want to talk about the Twitter one?
I feel like ending on child pornography is probably bad for the show's metrics.
You think that's bad karma?
But yeah, just generally.
So if you're a Twitter user, you know that certain higher up people on Twitter get these little verified badges added to their account, and that's supposed to validate that this is actually, and it's very common with actors and politicians, and they've actually been getting a little bit more generous with who they verify. I think like maybe it's Jeffrey Way who's verified now, or I forget who it was.
Jeffrey and Taylor both are. Well, that's a 2-for-1 deal when you verify them.
Yeah. And to be full disclosure, I applied to be verified too, because to me it made sense. As a person who's putting comments out on the internet, I want to make sure that people, that I'm standing behind those comments. That's really me. There's no question it's me. I'm making these comments, and I also use Twitter to verify my identity on other platforms. And Keybase kind of does a similar thing where you can actually verify your existence, like you're the Twitter owner by posting a specific string to your Twitter stream, and Keybase will kind of verify you on their platform, but you're still not verified on Twitter. Well, Twitter's hinting around now that they're going to make it so that everybody can kind of verify themselves, and that everybody you can all make your accounts verified on some level. And I don't know, I think it's kind of cool if
depends on how they're doing it. I mean, if it's
that's the big thing.
If everyone's verified, then what's the point of being verified?
Here's the weird thing to me. So they didn't mention the blockchain at all when they brought this up.
Why would they mention blockchain?
Why would you not when you're verifying?
Yeah, if you're going to verify people and you have
How does the blockchain verify you? Huh?
Because it's a public ledger. Now, once you're
It doesn't
verified,
verify you. It's just a record. How does it verify you? A blockchain doesn't verify you.
yes, it does.
That's all I'm gonna say. Yes, it does, and I'm done.
I don't want to talk about this.
Thomas is getting tired of our little battles. He's like, it does. Shut up.
This banter.
I'm tired of losing to you, Eric.
I don't lose to Eric. I lose to John. Eric
I don't
talks for
say
10
anything.
minutes. No, Eric talks for 10 minutes and John goes, yeah, Eric's right. And I've lost.
Are you caught on with that?
The episodes where it's just me and Eric have a completely different dynamic.
You win all those arguments.
Yeah, no, I have to go through, when I'm editing, I have to go through your feed and mute every time that you type and half the time that you agree with Eric.
I never type.
Oh my God, you have no idea, apparently. You type so much while we're on the air.
I do not. You're crazy.
You have your microphone mounted to your keyboard somehow too, so that every keystroke makes this like.
It's not better with the shock mount?
Not in the slightest. That was just the loudest thing this podcast has had so far, including the clap check at the beginning.
All right. I think we're done. We're an hour and 15
We're
minutes
wrapping
into
up.
this thing.
That's just a disaster of an episode.
Next week we have 99 problems and a podcast will be one.
I mean, doesn't that just make it 100 problems?
Good point.
All right.
Thomas is right. Thomas
Hey,
is
guys.
right.
We have a subreddit. I need to bring
have
that
a
up because I haven't brought it up in a while, and no one goes to our subreddit and upvotes anything or comments on anything, or as far as I can tell, looks.
So it's just like listeners of the podcast.
How do you Reddit? I don't know how to Reddit.
It's been a great episode, guys.
What is Reddit?
/r/phpugly. Reddit /r/phpugly.
R is for subreddit. U is for user.
Oh, really? I
Why
didn't know that.
Why wouldn't it be S for subreddit?
That's a good question.
I don't know, because watch the movie. I'm sure it gets talked about.
What movie?
The Internet's Only Boy.
Oh. You told me to watch that like 6 episodes ago.
I'm seeing 20, 19, 18, 17, 13. I'm seeing a lot of votes on some of these.
They're all
What are you
Thomas,
talking
though.
about?
He goes and creates different accounts so he can vote.
He's paying a sweatshop over in Asia to come in and
Where are you
Vote-
seeing this? I
vote
see
on things.
1 or 2.
on my screen I see
He's on the Reddit homepage.
Yeah, you're looking at somebody else's thing.
Oh, I'm not. Here, I'll take a screenshot for you.
No, our top upvoted thing of all time was 4 upvotes, and it was a picture of your phone with the PHP Ugly sticker on it.
My phone?
Oh no, I'm sorry. It was TRed27.
Oh, right, because he's cool, man. Here, I'll paste it. I'll paste this in here. That's what I'm seeing. Like, aren't the numbers on the left hand? Oh, or is that just the number of articles? Oh, that
Yeah.
explains
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. I'm like, look, the voting goes up. They vote 1. There's
Thomas,
2
I agree
votes,
with
there's
Eric this
3
time.
votes.
We're the most popular subreddit on Reddit.
How do you sort by votes then? You said you were able to see our most popular?
Yeah, there's a dialogue at the top that says top. And then there's a
Yes.
drop down that says all time.
All right, we were wrapping this up
Something-
5 minutes ago, and we still haven't.
Yeah,
done
we
so.
are. Okay, guys, this has been another fantastic episode of PHP Ugly.
You didn't sound convinced on that one. Try it again.
Correct.
98.
Episode 98. I'm Tom Rideout.
I'm John Congdon.
Johnson.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
Keep it ugly.
All right. Stop recording. Thanks to
Kill the broadcast.
Thanks to John's